Truth is, the gut is really at the center of our health. It is the core of our body, but it's also where all of our nutrients are absorbed and where we fight off a lot of the invading organisms that are trying to get a free meal off of us, so to speak. So, viruses and bacteria that make us sick. And it actually plays a really important role in our brain as well, and making sure that our memory works, as well as modulating our mood and our appetite. So, all of those things conspire to inspire me to use the gut to help better our health. And Hippocrates said it well, let food be thy medicine. Nonetheless, I think that's so true. And we're learning that it's not as simple as just the nutrients that are in food, but how the microorganisms within our gut, largely within our colon, serve as a bioreactor and transform those nutrients into other factors, so called metabolites or postbiotics, that are also really important for our health. It's a fascinating story that's unfolding in the most avant-garde research, and my mission through a blog that I keep is to try to bring that most current research directly to people so that they can be inspired to improve their health as well through interventions that impact their microbiome, their gut health, and largely through food, but certainly not exclusively.
If I were making a cartoon character of a gut microbiome, what would that character look like and what would its personality be?
Yeah, as you ask that question, I'm looking at the beautiful rainbow jellyfish, and I'm not sure if that's an octopus or a kraken or a squid. I mean, here in Seattle, we come from Kraken territory, the hockey team. It's called the Kraken. I'd take some inspiration from those drawings back there, and I could imagine actually the microbiome almost being like a rainbow within the gut. I think rainbow is a beautiful depiction of diversity, and the gut in health truly is a diverse ecosystem. It's not all that different from a vibrant coral reef or a rainforest. In the countless organisms, thousands of different species that are present and that coexist in a very harmonious way in health. And um, it's not that way when we get sick, and it's that lack of diversity, quite frankly, and the lack of cooperation between organisms that can contribute to gut dysfunction, and that ultimately contributes to dysfunction in the whole body. So yeah, maybe it would be kind of a rainbow of different species, lots of different colors, kind of all in a beautiful array.
So, how would you define the microbiome's personality?
I missed that part. Um, well, complex. I think the microbiome has many different dimensions to it. And you and I are complex too. There's different sides to all of our personalities. If somebody asks you, are you an extrovert or an introvert? And I always have a hard time answering that question because it depends on the circumstance, right? Depends on the context, how different elements of personality come forward. And that's kind of true for the microbiome as well. The context in the case of the microbiome is the food that you give it and how much you exercise and what your stress levels are and how well you sleep. What I call the four M's: molecules, microbes, movement, and mind. We can maybe talk more about that, but those are the environmental factors, the pillars of health that are impacting your microbiome. And when you give supporting pillars of health, the microbiome will in turn support you in healthful ways. But if you are less active, spend more time on the couch, more time watching screens, feeding it foods that it doesn't like so much, or if you're stressed or not sleeping, then what might otherwise be a healthy microbiome can show another side to itself because the barrier in your gut breaks down, and they might not be as cooperative then. They might become hangry, so to speak. When they don't get fed, and what they like to eat are the leftovers from the foods that we eat, and those are things like fibers and polyphenols, they get hangry. and they start looking for a meal elsewhere. And sometimes that's the mucus that our gut makes in health and it's the lining of our gut. And that can contribute to inflammation. And inflammation is one of the roots of disease.
So, some people may think of the gut microbiome, if they've heard of it, that, okay, if I eat something bad, my tummy might hurt.
Mhm.
Could you explain how exercise influences the gut microbiome?
So, health in the microbiome, disease in the microbiome is a two-way street. So, just as much as your gut and the way that you treat it impacts things like your brain and your moods and your metabolism and your muscles in exercise, the amount that you exercise impacts your gut microbiome. It really goes both ways. It's kind of a chicken or the egg phenomena. Which came first, or which impacts which? Is the gut microbiome that is helping you be more fit, or is being more fit helping your microbiome? It's both. But to give you an example of both directions, there's some really interesting research that's shown that certain athletes, endurance athletes, those that run marathons, for example, have a higher number of certain species that like to break down, consume lactic acid. And that's one of the byproducts of endurance exercise. And that might help them be more fit and able to run those long miles. And there's even companies that are trying to capitalize on that and giving that particular organism to people to see if they can make them more fit as well. So that's an example of how exercise can impact your gut microbiome, but it goes the other way too. If you feed your gut microbiome right with whole foods that have fiber and polyphenols to contribute to their diversity, they cooperate to turn those things into factors like butyrate that then positively impact all of the power generating organelles within your cells, the so called mitochondria. You can think of them like little factories. The butyrate that the microbiome is making fundamentally turns on and off the genes that are responsible for turning on and off those factories, whether or not they're made, how well they're recycled, how well they're maintained. When the microbiome isn't fed right, those mitochondria, the energy generating organelles in each and every one of our cells, doesn't work as well. That impacts our brain, but it also impacts our muscle health. When our muscles don't work as well, we can't run as fast, or we can't do gymnastics as well, or whatever sports is your passion. Your muscles just don't work as well for it. So the microbiome and treating it right is actually really important for our endurance and our fitness as well.
Butyrate and polyphenol are chemicals that our
Mhm.
body produces from food that we're eating.
Yeah. So the food that we eat has, you could call them phytochemicals. That's basically just plant chemicals. And these are good chemicals. Polyphenols are one of those, not the only thing that are in plants that are healthy. Another would be fiber. And our microbiome takes those chemicals and converts them into, you can think of them like activated chemicals, ones that really positively impact our cells. So it takes fiber, for example, and turns that into butyrate, which is you could think of it like the activated chemical. And it takes polyphenols and turns them into modified polyphenols that can get absorbed and that can impact your mitochondria. So yeah, it's not just about what you eat, but it's how healthy your microbiome is and how it converts those things that are leftovers that you don't absorb and that feed them instead into healthy molecules. It's almost like bacterial poop that fertilizes our cells, right? It's good poop.